We are a peaceful people, struggling we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces, from foreign places, talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. No, we ain't giving up no mountain, and we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belong to we. Not the one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one grass, not a blade of grass. This land is our land now, we're gonna make it somehow.
We're about to begin this afternoon's proceedings program, and first of all I want to thank you for your patience, and as we get into this important matter, and I want to make this known this afternoon. This event or this activity was advertised about two and a half weeks now, but I want to bring it to our attention. It shows, or it says a lot, that persons still do not understand the importance of what is happening with the Venezuela border issue. And so we have to ensure that after today, each of us play our part to ensuring that this issue is brought properly to our attention nationally, even in our homes. School is going to be reopened. I know a lot of mothers are in town right now, shopping, getting the late minute activity for preparations for Monday for their children. But nevertheless, we have to ensure that we do our part in letting people know. And this is not only in Linden, because we're now starting this discussion. Okay, and we need to ensure that we do more of this to let people know, because if you were listening to the news, you would have heard that Colombia and Venezuela would have recalled their ambassadors. So this is an important matter. Nevertheless, before we go into our actual discussions and presentations, we're going to have prayers. We're going to have an African prayer by Brother Cleveland, and we're going to have a Christian prayer by Sister Esther Benjamin and Brother Cleveland Tappin. So I'm going to ask Brother Cleveland to come forward, followed by Miss Benjamin.
Ancestors, even the past and present, was said, even the great ones who are restored to us, our ancestors, given the courage, and even at this day of success as we go forward in this program, for bless us and guide us, even invoke the spirit of the revolutionary, Kofi, and even the Republican at Burnham as we go forward, and bless us with more inspiration and knowledge, and let unity prevail among us continuously, and let this program be successful as we go forward. Amen.
Oh, merciful and ever-loving Father, we give you praise, we give you thanks for yet another day. Father, we thank you for the breath of life that we could stand here this evening to listen to this discussion. And as we listen, may we open our ears, our mind, and help us to understand what is being said and the importance of this situation today. Father, we touch each and every person here as they open their ears and understanding to this discussion. Let it be good to us that we could go out and share our knowledge so that more persons could understand and come into any other discussion. Father, give us the strength to go on. Bless every speaker this afternoon as you take full control. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge myself to honor always the flag of Guyana, and to be loyal to my country, to be obedient to the laws of Guyana, to love my fellow citizens, and to dedicate my energies towards the happiness and prosperity of Guyana. You may be seated.
Procrastination is the thief of time.
Good. Thank you very much.
At one point of Guyana's western border with Venezuela, the Renamo River flows into the Cuyuni River, and there is an island at this junction called Ankoko Island of about 2 to 3 square miles. According to the map in existence since 1904, The border runs roughly through the center of Ankoko Island from north to south, so that the western part of the island is Venezuelan and the eastern Guyanese. For some time, in fact during last month, a number of Venezuelans were crossing onto the Guyanese side and have since then been carrying out certain works on our territory. The report of this came to the notice of the government a few days ago only, and an inspection party consisting of senior officials and 2 senior police officers visited the island the day before yesterday, Wednesday the 12th of October. This party verified and confirmed the earlier report received through unofficial channels. In the opinion of the government, this intrusion by Venezuelans constitutes a breach of the Geneva Agreement entered into between the governments of the United Kingdom and Venezuela on the 17th of February 1966, to which agreement the government of Guyana is now a party. And today I have sent a cable to Dr. Egbert Borges, the Foreign Minister of Venezuela, strongly protesting the intrusion of Venezuelan personnel onto Guyanese territory and asking that immediate steps be taken by the government of Venezuela to ensure the immediate withdrawal of all such personnel. I have this morning informed the leader of the opposition of the situation and held discussions with him. Meanwhile, I await a reply from the Venezuelan government. I consider it my duty to inform the nation of this latest development and to assure you that every step is being taken to retain our territorial sovereignty by peaceful means. Your government proposes to abide by the terms of the Geneva Agreement and is hopeful that the government of Venezuela will do likewise. You are asked to remain calm and to await further information. Long live Guyana.
Chairman of the Burnham Foundation, former Registrar of the University of Ghana, Commissioner of the Guyana Elections Commission, Advisor to the Ministry of Education, Member of the National Accreditation Council, Chairman of the Board of Governors, Government of the Technical Institute, Member of the Board of Governor Christ Church Secondary School. Please put your hands together and welcome this fine gentleman as he presents to us this afternoon his presentation on the late Mr. Forbes Burnham.
Madam Chair, I think that's Vanessa. Colleagues at the head table, Comrades, Linden is not a strange place, but Linden is strange. The pleasure is mine this afternoon to say a few words on behalf of the Burnham Foundation. The Burnham Foundation is an organization which was formed in 2005. It was formed under the leadership of the late Elvin McDavid, who was a protege of Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham, worked with him and formed the foundation. I think the fact that McDavid formed the foundation led to some initial birthing problems of the foundation. I wouldn't go into any detail. Those of us who know some history may understand what I'm saying. The foundation, in a sense, has managed to overcome those birthing problems in more recent times. And that overcoming has been manifest in the way in which, for the last 5-6 years, the foundation has been able to work with other organizations, including the People's National Congress Reform, to do what the foundation has as its mandate. The foundation's mandate is to keep the ideas of Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham alive, to show the relevance of those ideas to the Guyana we live in today, and we are bold to say that those ideas are still relevant, to memorialize Burnham and to commemorate the life of Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham. That is the mandate of the foundation. The foundation is a non-for-profit, non-governmental organization which is prepared to work with any group of people who share our ideals. We are not a partisan group. If we are told we are partisan to Burnham. But we are prepared to work with all of those who share the ideals which we have. And so we do a number of things in our ongoing work, a number of things. One of the main things we do presently is we have a monthly television program called State of the Nation. And on that program, we discuss the ideas of Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham, the achievements of Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham, and we relate those ideas and those achievements to Guyana today. We're quite aware that you in Lyndon do not see that program. We are of the view that in the not too distant future, Lyndon will be able to see that program. And I promise that once Lyndon's TV is up and running, that we will find the means to make that program available on a monthly basis in Lyndon. I promise you that. In addition to that program, we have activities from time to time. And I don't know how many of you know that for the last 2 years, on the occasion of the birth anniversary, February, of Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham, we have started a cycle race in Lyndon that goes to Georgetown. And that race has been organized now for about 5 to 6 years. When we started that race, we used to go from Georgetown to Belfield and back. And then 3 years ago, we went from Georgetown to the Klebeck factory at Coverdale and back, and then Georgetown to Belfield and back. And for 2 years now, we have done from Lyndon to Georgetown, and then Georgetown to Belfield and back. And we intend to continue with that in the years to come. We chose Lyndon as a place for 2 reasons. We wanted to get more of the Lyndoners, the Lyndon cyclists involved in the race, and we wanted to symbolize Lyndon with Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham by starting the race in Lyndon. I think we need to find a way to get it more into the populated part of Lyndon so Lyndoners will be more aware of that annual activity. But there are other things we do year-round, particularly on the occasion of his birth anniversary and on the occasion of his death anniversary. We're always doing things. And one of the things we do is to hold a symposium. That's one of the things we do. And we try to see what's a relevant topic to center our symposia around. And so, with the Venezuelans acting up on this matter of the Guyana-Venezuela border controversy, we felt we had an obligation to do symposia that focus on that topic. Because we know of the work that Lyndon Forbes Burnham did in his time, starting from 1968, when this became a renewed problem to educate the Guyanese people. There is no alternative in the first instance to educating the Guyanese people about that border controversy, so that we don't just sing a blade of grass because it sounds nice, but we sing a blade of grass because we know what we are talking about, and we believe indeed that they should not have a blade of grass. So we have set out at this time, on the occasion of his death anniversary, to dedicate our work to doing what not many others are doing, unfortunately, bringing to the Guyanese public information on the Guyana-Venezuela border controversy. There are those who are not here and who may give a range of reasons for their absence, and probably reasons for why you shouldn't be here. But we would not have been here if they were doing their work. We are here to do the work of Lyndon Forbes Burnham. And we don't have time for the sidebars, because our country doesn't have time for sidebars if we're going to maintain the territorial integrity of this country. And so we are glad that those of you who are here. And we will share with you our message, and we look forward to you in your own little ways, in your own little places, also sharing this message. And as we share this message, it's going to be recorded. And when we are finished recording this message, it's going to be available worldwide. All of our messages, you can go on YouTube and you can see our messages. They're available for the world to see. So all Guyanese can see the message. And for this particular one, we're also probably going to take an opportunity to have it played on TV in Linden. And so all of Linden will have an opportunity to know what they missed, for whatever reason they missed it. We're going to have it played in Linden, I promise you that as well, in the very near future. Before the end of the first week in September, we're going to organize at all costs to have this activity aired in Linden, so Lindeners can still benefit from the information that we are here to share with you today, because we think it's important that Guyanese are exposed to this information. I therefore simply want to bring you greetings from the Burnham Foundation. Greetings. On this, the occasion of his 30th death anniversary. But Burnham is one dead man who is alive. Very much alive. For those who love him, he's alive. Yes. For those who hate him, he's alive. Yes. And for those who don't know about him, he is alive. And so we're going to keep him alive, because his ideas are the ideas that can take this country forward once we understand them and once we implement them. And we have seen people who criticize them, try to twist them and implement them. And that is how we know that even among them, he's alive. And so I'd like to thank you all for being here. We are going to try to do some additional work in the not too distant future. to resuscitate a branch of the Burnham Foundation in Linden. There was a time when there was some activism here of the Burnham Foundation, and we're going to try to get that going again. And what we're going to do, we're going to ask before we leave, that those of you who are interested in working with us, to give your names and your contact to our secretary, and she's in the audience there. I think on the executive, I'm the oldest person. I'm the oldest person.
Not everybody.
Sorry. Sorry.
It's so oldest man. He meant to say man.
I'm sure you know what I meant. I didn't mean to say that I'm old. I mean to say that many who are in the organization are young. That's the point I really want to make. That we have young people who are with us to carry on the work of Linden, Forbes, Sampson, Burnham. It's not the old and retiring. We are like shepherds, but they are young people, and we have some of them here who are on the executive. So our organization is in good hands. It's not in yesterday's hand, it's in today and on to tomorrow. So we're going to ask you, if you have an interest, to give your names and your contact information, and we'll be back to do work with you so that Linden could continue to be Linden. Thank you.
Everyone. Anthony Judah Carlton Jordan was born on the 14th of March 1998 to Carlton and Rita Jordan. He attended the Wisma Hill Nursery School, the Utukade Primary, and later went on to the Christianburg Wisma Secondary School, where he played the role of Deputy Head Prefect and third speaker of the school's debate team, which won, by the way. Anthony Jordan is a member of the Kingdom Restoration Ministries, where he plays the drums. He aspires to be a lawyer, pastor, and minister. Anthony Jordan recently completed a secondary education in which he was successful in 10 CXC subjects with 4 grade 1s, 3 grade 3s, and 2 grade 2s, and a distinction. I now present to you Mr. Anthony Jordan.
Thank you, Ms. Alsop, for that introduction. Good evening, everybody. Madam Chairperson, colleagues, members of the audience, good evening. Today it's a pleasure to present on behalf of our beloved brother, Mr. Sharma Rahim Solomon. Yes, and I will go straight into the coming together of the people of Linden in 2012 should inspire the coming together of the people of Guyana at this defining moment. On the 18th of July, we honored the memory of Shemar Boya, Alan Lewis, and Ron Somerset, and are comforted by their spirit, which remains in our midst. The comfort is rooted in our belief that as citizens of this land, we deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. In that, the struggle to ensure this equality led to the demise of our comrades. Our heroes, Guyana's heroes, was inspired and remains inspired in the fact that this land is ours, from the Rupununi to the Quarantine, from the Green Heart Forest to the Atlantic rivers. Yes. This land was made for us. Yes. This land was made for us. It serves as impetus to us to keep pushing on, and it serves for us to keep on. And if this land was made for us, then it means that we have a right to be treated as fair and first-class citizens, a right to every square inch and an exclusive economic zone prescribed by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea in relation to Guyana. That the people of Linden, Region 10, 3 years ago, came out in their thousands for weeks on end to signal to a government that as citizens of this land, we shall accept no less than what we are entitled to. And Shemroy, Ron, and Alan have paid the ultimate price. while others were injured, and we remain undeterred in testimony to what we as people are capable of. We face similar threats, though this time from foreign places. I paraphrase Dave Martins and the trade winds to say that we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountain. We ain't giving up no sea. We ain't giving up no river, because all belong to we. 18th of July 2012, when darkness shrouded this blessed nation, blood, tears, and sweat drenched our soul. The anguish of our people to sanctioned police brutality made sunset a time we never forgotten. For this is the day that marked a new beginning in the nation's history, when a people confronted adversity in the spirit of oneness not seen in the country for some time. Today, as we weep, some audibly and others in silence, the physical absence of Shemroy, Ron, and Alan in our midst, and though we miss our brothers dearly, our grief must not immobilize us. Because if we are immobilized, then we allow the forces of darkness to conquer us. In the midst of sorrow, we must find strength. The strength to continue to be our brothers and sisters keepers. To keep hope alive as we pursue the dream to live in this blessed land as one people, one nation, one destiny. The strength to defy adversity and press on in the conviction that our lives and the lives of our fallen comrades will only end the day we stop believing in ourselves and our abilities. That needed strength, that while complacency beckons now that we have a new government, to recognize that we cannot let up, give up, or quit until every aspect of the 21st of August 2012 agreement between central government and Region 10 Regional Democratic Council is honored. We must look within and draw from deep within us the needed stamina to journey on to ensure an agreement written and sealed with our blood, sweat, and tears come to fruition. This government has committed to honor the agreement, to honor an agreement that requires the return of the television station gifted to the people of Linden by Green Construction, to ensure that the people of Region 10 participate in the crafting of an economic plan for their development, to examine and developing an affordable and reliable electricity sector, to have members of the required ministry sit on the land selection committee that we now have under our control. All of this we agree to. All of this we deserve, and all of this we must have. And while I repose confidently in this administration that they will respond to our years of struggle for equal rights and justice, as we keep our eyes on the prize, let us not lose sight of the threat to our statehood by our neighbor, Venezuela. This threat comes at a time when each and every one of us is called on to remember not what our country can do for us, but what we can do for our country. This time is now to do our bit for Guyana. Let us cooperate for Guyana and resolve to fight together. Yes, we can. As Guyanese, we must raise our voice in unison across the Atlantic Ocean so President Maduro can hear us. Voicing Dave Martins, and I quote, "Not one cuirass, not a blade of grass," end quote. All are aware by now of the rapidity of the absence of sensibility by President Maduro to think there is validity in his claim to what is not Venezuela's. This covetousness to an inch, much less 2/3 of our land, we must not accept, and we are clearly not negotiating. It's clearly non-negotiable. We do not need any identification card for any part of our 83,000 square miles other than the one marked the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Guyana is our home, and no one must put us out of our home. Only a fool allows himself to be evicted from his own home. And Guyana, we are not fools. Guyanese are not fools. Brothers and sisters, these are serious times. Serious enough to warrant us standing together regardless of which party we support or which race we belong to. And I use these two identifications because they are often used not to play to the better angels within us. Race and politics must not divide us, and any claim to our sovereignty and territorial integrity. In this, we are one, and we must remain one. If we must fight, and fight we must to guard which belongs to us. Let us fight together. Yes, we can. In 1899, the International Tribunal settled the boundary dispute between Guyana and Venezuela. We must see this ruling as binding and non-negotiable. While our national leaders engage in diplomacy to have good sense prevail on the part of Venezuela leadership, as citizens, be we at home or abroad, we in our own little way can add our voice to foil any rude invader. Let us ask everyone we know to join us in condemning this existential threat to our statehood. Let us inform everyone that while we empathize with the economic challenges faced by Venezuelans under President Maduro's leadership, we shall not roll over and accept anybody taking from us what is rightfully ours. A peaceful people we are, but any talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. If Guyana is allowed to drill for the oil, it is said we have. It means economic development for us and greater independence. It means our dependency on oil-producing country, notably Venezuela, will be a thing of the past, and we will have greater opportunities for charting our development and standing stronger on our feet. It means greater security for us as a people, since oil will no longer be used as a financial weapon over our heads to restrict the potentials and bounty of this blessed land and her people. The people of Guyana, in one voice, must put President Maduro on notice that we ain't giving up nothing and we ain't backing down. All 83,000 square miles and the exclusive economic zone prescribed by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea in relation to Guyana remain ours. In one voice, we must commit to cherish and defend forever this nation that gave us our parents and foreparents' birth. What propelled the people of Linden Region 10 in 2012 and fellow Guyanese who joined us in the struggle are the same things that must propel us to implement the 2012 agreement and ward off Venezuela aggression. These are grit and determination to stand up and fight for what is rightfully ours. We ain't giving up. Let all Guyana know we ain't giving up. Let embroiled President Maduro and the good people of Venezuela know that we ain't giving up nothing that belong to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not a drop of water from the Pomeroon. May the souls of Shemroy, Alan, and Ron continue to rest in peace. Though they no longer walk among us, they will never be forgotten. May God continue to bless you all. Thank you.
Put your hands together. Come on, you can do better than that. Yes. You know we got saying your pores raising up. Yeah. I'm a pores raising up. Because let me say this, I know it's not easy to come to present on behalf of a man such as Mr. Solomon, but we got another young Solomon in our midst. Listen, we got leaders in this place. Put your hands together for Judah Jordan this afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon.
Mr. Raul Lucas is a certified public accountant with over 20 years combined experience in the financial services industry, development, economics, and international affairs. Since 2013, Mr. Lucas has been a lecturer at University of Guyana in public finance, international finance, and international affairs. He is the holder of a master's degree in international affairs and undergraduate degrees in economics and accounting respectively. He publishes a column every week in the Stabroek News and is also the producer of the Lucas Stock Index, which appears in the business page of Sunday Stabroek as well. In his career with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Guyana, Raul represented Guyana at the United Nations in New York before joining the staff of UNICEF in Ethiopia and doing a tour of duty in Bangladesh with the same organization. He also served as chairman of the Economic Subcommittee of the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations, vice chairman of the UNICEF Executive Board, and as a member of the Guyana delegation of Non-Aligned and Commonwealth conferences. Please help me welcome Mr. Raul Lucas.
Thank you very much. What's her name again? Shanessa? Sean Arthur. Okay, and welcome to all of you. Good afternoon. It is indeed a pleasure for me to have this opportunity today to speak to you on aspects of the Burnham foreign policy on the occasion of celebrating the life and death of Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham. Madam Chairperson, this event, following the occasion of the observance of the 30th death anniversary of Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham, entreats me to remember who the man was as we attempt to understand the irrationality of the Guyana-Venezuela controversy, a matter that is constantly provoked by our neighbor to the west. I wish to do so bearing in mind that I sit in a municipality that bears part of his name, and which by itself gives occasion for me to accept as an honor and a privilege the opportunity to speak to you this day about Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham's efforts to stave off Venezuela's aggression towards Guyana. I do so recognizing also that I stand among friends and well-wishers who would like to understand what it is that makes Venezuela feel that it must keep this nation of Guyana off balance. There are many among us who would lead you to believe that Burnham was a corrupt and selfish man. They offer vile and contemptuous opinions about his rule of Guyana without seeking to place it in the historical, political, economic, and security context in which it took place. And every time I listen to the remarks of a detractor, I'm always reminded of the statements made by Mark Antony at Brutus's urging at Julius Caesar's funeral, when he said, "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I am here to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them, and the good is interred with their bones. That is what many would like us to remember about Burnham, the bad, not the good. But I think you ought to understand that the underlying philosophy that urged Mark Antony to speak at Caesar's funeral stemmed from the belief that Caesar had, the passion, the ambition, as Brutus called it, of trying to do right for Rome. And what I am about to share with you in the context of the Guyana-Venezuela relationship is how I see Forbes Burnham and what he tried to do for Guyana in the context of the Guyana-Venezuela controversy. So I will not be dealing with the many facets of his management of Guyana, for that is not the purpose of my presence here today. But that we must do one day in order to understand what happened to this country over the past 23 years and where we must take it henceforth. Today, I would like to speak about Forbes Burnham in the context of his determination to preserve and protect the territorial integrity of Guyana. This limited presentation should still give you reason to think about the future of Guyana and the role that you must still play in building that future. The conclusion of the border controversy, whether it happens now or in the future, in many respects bear on the future of Region 10 and the role that it will play in that future effort of advancing Guyana. Madam Chairperson, many might have grown up hearing the words territorial integrity, good neighborliness, and universality, or they may eventually come to hear them. These were not words fashioned by Burnham, but they were principles that guided how we understood Guyana and how Guyana should conduct itself in the region and around the world as an independent nation. The concepts of territorial integrity and universality are concepts that identify a state or country as a sovereign, as having the right to determine and control its people, its resources, and its institutions. The parameters for this position were set much earlier by the British, as I will disclose later. So you could imagine then that when Guyana was about to gain independence from the United Kingdom, and Venezuela decided to raise its unjust claim to the Essequibo, 5/8 of Guyana's territory, how determined Burnham was to protect the sovereignty of Guyana. It is against this background and in this context that I would like to speak about his role in the Guyana-Venezuela controversy. Like anything else, we need to have some background to that controversy. Let me state here, though, as far as Guyana is concerned, the controversy with Venezuela is about the validity of the 1899 arbitral award, which gave Guyana the territory that it now has. Those words are not mere references to a legal decision. For Guyana and Forbes Burnham, they meant that the boundary between Guyana and Venezuela was settled. This was the position established by Forbes Burnham prior to independence, and that is the position of Guyana today. The durability of that position in Guyana's foreign policy for nearly 50 years now speaks not only to his comprehension of the problem, but also of his determination to preserve the country as we know it for future generations of Guyanese. Madam Chairperson, as we examine his performance, we must keep in mind that Forbes Burnham ascended to the premiership of Guyana, fetching an external threat to the sovereignty of Guyana and an internal threat to its cohesion. This presentation will condense those circumstances so as not to bore you. So what were the precedents to the territorial controversy created by Venezuela? As you would know from your history, the Dutch settled in Essequibo in 1616 until it ceded the combined territories of Demerara and Essequibo on the one hand and the independent colony of Berbice to the British in the Treaty of Paris in 1850. The British brought the three colonies together in 1831 under one governor. What the British realized by 1834 was it did not know exactly what it had inherited from the Dutch. In order to find out, it gave a series of commissions starting in 1835 to a German surveyor, geographer, and naturalist by the name of Robert Schomburg to find and demarcate the boundaries of British Guyana. It is important to point out here that Schomburg did not discover or invent any new boundaries. He approached his work in the manner that experts of his day did. He relied on natural features to demarcate the boundaries. He interviewed persons living in the areas that he encountered and traversed in his inquiries. He searched for evidence of Dutch possessions and dwellings. He searched also for evidence of the Spanish presence and influence. In carrying out his work, Schomburg took information from the Amerindians as well. He searched as far west as possible for Spanish influence and Dutch possessions. Using these methods, Schomburg was able to determine the limits of Dutch possession and the zone from which all trace of Spanish influence was absent. Schomburg also called attention to the fact that the British government might justly claim the whole basin of the Cuyuni and the Uruari, a tributary of the Cuyuni that is currently located in Venezuela, on the grounds that the natural boundary of British Guyana included any territory through which flowed rivers which were themselves tributaries of the Essequibo. The British notified Venezuela and Brazil of the territory that it was claiming based on Schomburg's findings. In response to the British notice, Venezuela proposed that there be a treaty of limits between the British and Venezuela. Britain felt that that was unnecessary because we should first of all demarcate or confirm the demarcation of the boundaries before moving to adopt a treaty. One of the things that we should note is that Venezuela never made a claim to the territory of Guyana or even that of the Essequibo until 1844, 3 years after they were notified about what the British were seeking. That claim was based primarily on the argument that the Spaniards had discovered the New World. Things remained in a state of uncertainty until 1895, when the U.S. finally agreed to set up a boundary commission as a result of constant requests by Venezuela for such a body. Eventually, that was done under the Treaty of Washington. And in 1897, that commission was set up. Subsequently, a tribunal in 1897 was established as well. And that tribunal met, and in 1899 gave them a decision as to what the boundary between Guyana and Venezuela should be. That decision, which gave us the territory that we know as Guyana today and as Venezuela as well, was regarded as a full, final, and perfect settlement of the boundary dispute at that time between Venezuela and Guyana. By 1904, Brazil, British Guyana, and Venezuela had marked the boundaries that we have today. Further, in 1905, Venezuela agreed to the maps that resulted from this demarcation exercise. In other words, Venezuela accepted the full, final, and perfect settlement of the boundaries as was determined by the arbitral tribunal of 1899. So what happened after 1899 that brought the issue to life again? A member of the Venezuelan delegation to the tribunal, Severo Mallet Provost, claimed in a letter written in 1944 that there was collusion between the British jurists on the tribunal and the Russian chairman of the tribunal. And that led to Guyana getting the territory that it received. In addition to that, he claimed that Venezuela was pressured by America into accepting the decision of the tribunal. This man also requested that the contents of his letter not be made public until after he died. Mallet Provost died in December 1948, and the contents of his letter were revealed in July 1949. It is not clear why Mallet Provost made such a request, but what is known is that by the time the claim was made known, none of the persons he accused was alive to defend himself. And that is the basis of the claim that Venezuela has against 5/8 of Guyana's territory. Venezuela reopened the matter in 1962 at the United Nations on the basis of that rather spurious claim by Mallet Provost. And Britain immediately rejected the action of Venezuela and made it clear at that point that neither the British nor the Guyana government accepted that there was any dispute to discuss. The information that I just presented to you indeed is the basis of the Venezuelan claim to the Egbert, 2/3 of the territory that was awarded to Guyana in 1899. Madam Chairperson, in 1965, after becoming Premier of Guyana, Burnham was confronted with this problem. Being the pragmatist that he was, he visited Venezuela to see how he could prevent the matter from escalating into hostile relations. It was the start of the good neighborly policy of the Burnham regime. Good neighborliness is a principle of international law that pursues the practice of tolerance and living together in peace. Burnham pushed that principle because it made sense in an environment in which Guyana was surrounded by Iberian countries that shared a similar culture to that of Venezuela, and an eastern neighbor with whom it also had a border conflict. He recognized that not all the countries in the region, however, were hostile to Guyana. Brazil, in particular, which itself felt it had to give up too much territory to satisfy the claims of everyone else in the region, was in agreement with the boundaries of 1905, and therefore does not and did not at that time want to see it change. Consequently, as soon as it could, Guyana set up diplomatic relations with its three contiguous neighbors, namely Brazil, Suriname, and Venezuela. One could also see CARICOM as an extension of that good neighborly policy. It made sense because the Caribbean islands, like Guyana, stood in the way of Venezuela achieving its naval ambitions of being an Atlantic military power. CARICOM was therefore always seen as part of Guyana's first line of defense against its aggressive neighbors. This principle of good neighborliness was also part of Burnham's effort to maintain Guyana's territorial integrity. But the preservation of the territorial integrity of states is in itself a principle in international law that seeks to prevent border changes by force. It is a principle that is enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations, and one that urges all its members to refrain from using force against other states. It is the reason Guyana could not support the US invasion of Grenada or the attack by Israel on its Middle Eastern neighbors. The principle of universality was encouraged to ensure access to the widest possible support for what Guyana saw as an unjust and illegitimate claim against 5/8 of its territory. Burnham wanted to ensure that as many nations as possible adhered to the principles of good neighborliness and territorial integrity. And that, he understood, could only be done through pursuing the principle of universality. Consequently, the respect for the three principles of universality, good neighborliness, and territorial integrity was part of the reason that Burnham accepted the Geneva Accord and subsequently the 1970 Protocol of Port of Spain as ways in which he tried to deal with the controversy with Venezuela. The Geneva Agreement called for setting up a mixed commission to see if the two countries could end the controversy through bilateral means. However, Venezuela interpreted the agreement to have the accord to mean that Guyana accepted a reopening of the claim, while Guyana interpreted it as Venezuela being given a chance to prove that the 1899 award was null and void. As a result of that stalemate, there was no progress on the mechanisms of the Geneva Accord. In 1970, as Guyana moved to Republican status, Venezuela, in February of that year, made an incursion into Guyana's territory at Ettering Bank. That incident hastened moves to find a new mechanism to resolve the controversy. Venezuela called for arbitration by the OAS, but Burnham rejected that, since Venezuela had already rejected one arbitral award, and there was no confidence that it would not reject another. Guyana could not trust Venezuela. Guyana proposed instead that the matter go to the International Court of Justice, but Venezuela rejected that proposal. As a consequence, we were left with a search for other means, and with the good intervention of Dr. Eric Williams of Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana and Venezuela signed what was now known as the Protocol of Port of Spain in June of 1970. The protocol did not replace the Geneva Accord, it merely suspended it. But we continued with the protocol until the early 1980s, when Venezuela again made a military incursion of Guyana's airspace. Burnham, therefore, found it necessary to expand his reach and to try and apply more pressure to Venezuela. And he did this by pursuing his principles of good neighborliness, territorial integrity, and universality through the non-aligned movement. And through that entity, Guyana was able to mobilize support successfully against Venezuela. Venezuela found itself isolated and was forced to rebuild relations with many countries. The situation that Guyana faces today, though occurring in an area outside that of Burnham, is one which can turn to the Burnham era for a ready promotion and defense of Guyana's position on the matter. As many of you would know, on the 26th of May this year, the President of Venezuela issued Decree 1897. 1787, sorry. Yeah, 1787, on May the 26th, extending Venezuela's claim to the territorial waters, the maritime zone of Guyana. Our government decided to respond in the same way that Forbes Burnham would have responded, by moving to its first line of defense and calling upon its CARICOM neighbors to first and foremost condemn the actions of Venezuela. I would like to stop my presentation at this particular point because, as I said before, this incident which has occurred, though outside of the era of Burnham, could well be resolved or responded to in the same manner that he would have responded, simply because he gave us an enduring set of tools with which to work in spite of our smallness as a country and our limited capacity militarily. I am prepared to have a discussion with you on any aspects of this presentation, and I would like to thank you for listening. Thank you very much.
We are a peaceful people, struggling we struggle, and we no look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces, from foreign places, talk about taking over,